on that bombshell, let's move on to our final item. This is the concept that seems to be taking the internet by storm of the lesbian boyfriend. Now, I came across this, as I usually do, by Googling the word lesbian in order to find stories that we can talk about. And
your research methods are exemplary. No one can ever take that away from you.
That's true. So they've always said so, in fact. But lesbian boyfriend is what Lily Rose Depp, who is the daughter of Johnny Depp and Vanessa Paradis, I think. She has described her partner, who's a woman, as her lesbian boyfriend. I have a locket of my boyfriend's hair, kind of like in the movie. I like lockets. I think they're very romantic. Okay, so she didn't even say lesbian boyfriend. She just said boyfriend.
No, just boyfriend.
And then one of her people made an effort to clarify the situation. Oh, MTV made an effort to clarify the situation with an explanation. They said, as Lily said boyfriend, we're respecting her terms, because obviously these days you've just got to use however people identify. That's that. But then there's lots of other instances of lesbian boyfriend. So there's an article called "What is a Lesbian Boyfriend? How Sapphic Relationships Play with Gender." And, I don't even need to tell you the details because you can imagine. But basically, what do you think of the concept of a lesbian boyfriend, Julie?
Right. Well, there are two things. First of all, there's the queer nonsense that this article seems to be based on, which is
given
trans. And this is about playing with gender in a way that's very Judith Butlerite. It's not playing with gender at all. It's entrenching sex stereotypes, and it's refusing to accept that you can have a lesbian relationship with two women that isn't one of them going off on the woo-woo train. But I also think playing in a proper lesbian feminist way, like I'm just going to now tell you what that proper lesbian feminist way is joking about things that we know are ridiculous is entirely different from buying into an ideology like queer and trans. Right. I have long used, for example, as a feminist, I think it's hilarious to say, what's that bird doing over there? Because obviously we know that men use the word birds. They are ludicrous. It is ridiculously old-fashioned sexist, and it just feels a bit, it makes me laugh sometimes. Yeah. With the whole playing with the gender stereotype stuff. I do that constantly. I will, for example, I have a friend who I love dearly, who she's a bit butch, and her wife is, much more feminine. And I'll often call my friend. I'll say to the feminine one, "How is your good lady husband today?" And she thinks it's hilarious. I'll say sometimes, "Look at so-and-so, she's so butch, she dresses to the left." Or "That woman was so butch, she can donate to a sperm bank." There's all kinds of jokes that or she could kickstart a vibrator.
Kickstart a vibrator. I was just going to say that one.
That's the old ones are always the best. So there are lots of jokes that I make, and lots of lesbians I know about butch and femme, and as I say, referring to somebody as your good lady husband, and also my partner, who is not butch presenting in the slightest. My niece refers to her as father for a joke. So we do it constantly. We know what it means. We're not transing or queering anything. I don't know if you do that, if you think that that's funny.
Oh, God, yeah. But I'm constantly referring to myself as a man, and encouraging other people to do so also. Also, like all the sexist stuff, like her indoors, ball and chain. All of
it. It's brilliant. Trouble and strife. It's brilliant. I love it.
If you've forgotten the name of somebody's partner, which I frequently do, just say, "How's the missus?" or "How's the
missus? How's your bird? How's your bird?" We do it. We're not precious. We think it's funny, right? But this article was not funny. I mean,
do you think that Lily Rose Depp was being funny?
God, not in the slightest.
But we don't know. Maybe. I mean, that's what I think. The strange thing about queer theory, or whatever, this queer turn the last decade, is that it's just removed humour almost entirely, and play. Even though the whole original idea was, I think, way back when, that you played around with this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, even Butler would be talking about play. But there's no play anymore. It's absolutely literal. If you say boyfriend, then she is a boyfriend.
Well, Lee Lynch, who I met her in Oregon. It was the best thing ever. She's in her 80s. She wrote lots of novels for Naiad Press, and we talked about that when I met her, because she just happened to live in the same small town as a friend of mine I'd gone to visit. It was extraordinary, the coincidence.
Well,
and we were talking about these things that when she wrote back in the 1960s and 70s about butch femme relationships, where she had one particular scene in one of her books where the femmes were all together in their aprons in the kitchen making food for actual men, and a couple of the butches involved in the lesbian scene, and they would say, "You boys go off and have a beer and we'll get the dinner ready." And none of it was about trans. It wasn't queering it. Yes, all right, you can critique it till the cows come home from a feminist perspective. But don't. It's just fun, right? It's just fun.
Exactly. I think, and you can tell the difference when it's supposed to be fun or when it's this sort of heavy, deadening, literal-minded crap. So
Absolutely.
I would like to leave an open mind about whether Lily was being funny, because we have
I
no
won't.
idea. Basically, we know nothing about her, and she might be
I'm
just
not having that open mind.
No, well, I
I'm
am.
sick. I'm sick of an open mind. I've had too much of an open mind during this pod.
Well, that's true.
I'm closing
Okay,
it down.
You're very argy-bargy today. Now, this one is quite serious. So, dear Julie and Kathleen, after grappling with some inner conflict due to my background, I'm a newly realised gender critical. However, with the complex layer that I transitioned, F to M, in my early 20s, now I'm close to 40. I reject the ideology as it stands today, though I don't discount rare cases of genuine transsexuals quietly getting on with life. Obviously, their biology remains the same. I'm wondering if there are any spaces, whether lesbian-specific or gender-critical spaces, where I would be accepted, looking male as I do, but being born female, with lesbian history, and largely agreeing with the gender-critical position, with hopes to make friends and build connections in such a community. I admire the women who speak out, often at a hefty cost. I have feared wrath from the trans community and their allies. I've suitably distanced myself, knowing it's time to move out and move on. Is my presence and background welcome now? Are there specific events or forums I can join to meet others? Kind regards, thanking you, Curious Scotland. So, a difficult situation, I think, for this person. And I don't know, what would you like to say to her?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for writing in to us about this. It's been on my mind a lot for some time, when very courageous women began to detransition. Kira Bell, of course, took her case to court, for which we're all very grateful that those issues were exposed. And I think it's an extremely important question for lesbians about how, because I have absolutely no doubt whatsoever that we should do this, how we encourage detransitioned women, lesbians, back into lesbian spaces and communities, social events and politics. I've heard prejudice towards detransitioned women. I've heard some really unpleasant things be said, such as, well, they're not really lesbians. How could they be? They let us down. They betrayed us. All of that I find deeply offensive and problematic, because I don't think any of that at all. And when you think about, what I'm speaking directly, of course, to you, what you have been through, and how you were excluded from your own biological sex, body and identity and community, then I think it's even more important that we find a way to be as inviting and as welcoming to you. There are practical problems, obviously, and some detransitioned lesbians have spoken about their physical appearance being altered, sometimes permanently, with facial hair and other physical markers, which leave some women to think that they might be a man in a women's space, and we're all very sensitive to that right now. But first and foremost, I'm so glad that you are thinking about these issues and have come to us for advice, which hopefully we can give.
And I'd like to second that. So we had a detransitioned female on as a guest, Aaron Kimberley, and when we did that, and Aaron's got a beard, for instance, when we did that, we got lots of positive comments, but we did get some negative feedback from people who were really shocked, that felt like we were somehow betraying our mission. And I have to say, I think that's absolutely wrong. We are not betraying our mission, because the way we set up the Lesbian Project, for a start, is for same-sex attracted females, or exclusively same-sex attracted females. And that is technically a correct description of lots and lots of trans-identified females who are trans-identified, because your biology doesn't change and your patterns of sexual attraction don't change. So that's, that's not how a lot of trans men, in inverted commas, would see themselves, rather. But that is how basically the description remains true. So it is our mission. And the other thing I just want to say is that when I wrote my book about trans activism and gender and sex material girls, I was really clear, and I've always been really clear, that I am fighting institutions and organizations and not people. Unless those people are heads of institutions and organizations, but I'm certainly not interested in and never have been interested in getting into shouting matches with individual trans-identified people simply because they're trans-identified. Even when they want to get in shouting matches with me, I've always tried to resist it. So that's just not who I am. It's not who Julie is. And if that, I have to say, if listeners object to any of this, then I'm afraid this podcast is just not for you, because this is what we stand for quite strongly. So with all that said, getting to the point of your question, I think it's extremely difficult, but I think a lot of feminists, activists feel like us.
Yes.
And I hope you can find them. I think I might have seen you commenting in our subscriber comments. If I haven't, please get in there. And I think I could see that there's at least one other detransitioner in there. So I suggest that you find a way of meeting other women in your situation, because I know that they are out there and there will be more of them in future. In fact, you might come to be seen as a kind of pioneer in this area. There'll be some in wherever you are in Scotland. There'll be definitely some in Edinburgh and Glasgow. And there'll be lesbians who want to hang out with you. I just think that's true. It's going to take courage to try and sort of meet them, and you can't be deterred by the odd negative person because others feel differently.
Yes, and obviously you're lucky in one way. As Kathleen said, I don't know where you are, curious, whether you're in a small town or whether you're near one of the cities. But my God, the lesbians there are cracking. There's some brilliant lesbians across Scotland, and hopefully some of them will be making contact with you. But definitely don't give up, and we support you 100%. And I just hope, in a few weeks' time or a few months, you contact us and say, I found this great community, things are much better. And, see you at the next Edinburgh disco or whatever.
Yes, I mean, another. I know that the LGBT Alliance do meetups, don't they? They've got local friends groups now. Again, I don't know that everyone's going to feel like we do on this matter, but it might be worth trying to approach the LGBT Alliance friends group organizer in Edinburgh or Glasgow. If other people have suggestions as well, particularly in Scotland, then please write them or email us and we can pass them on.
Yes.
But generally, I think that wherever somebody feels like this, we should be trying to help. And so let's see if we can do that.
Absolutely, 100% agree. We've ended on a note of agreement.
We have, and for once, we give decent advice as opposed to talking nonsense. So let's stop and say, see you all next week.
See you next week, everyone. See you next week, Kathleen.